You've entered Bookstorm. Your favorite authors are here to dive down deep into their best-selling books. Stay tuned to brave the storm.
Welcome back to Bookstorm Podcast. Listeners, I'm Kristen Civiletto, and with me is Julia Noel Rose. And we are so glad you're tuning in from 102 countries and territories, all 50 states. And we know why. It is because we are bringing you the very best authors that are writing today. And today is no exception. We are just absolutely thrilled to welcome New York Times bestselling author, Mary Alice Monroe. Welcome, Mary Alice.
Oh, hello. I've been looking forward to this.
We are just so excited for so many reasons. We've followed your career for a long time, and you've written a book that we're here to talk about today that is phenomenal. And if you wouldn't mind holding up a cover picture, we've got a wonderful, wonderful cover.
I am quite proud of this cover. It's quite, let me get a nice vision of it there. Okay.
There it is. It's beautiful. Where the Rivers Merge. And there's so much behind that title that we won't give away necessarily, but we cannot wait to dive in.
We had fun coming up with that title.
Now, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about your background. People are well familiar with your writing, but also because of your activities in numerous other areas with conservancy and other things related to the natural world. You are the author of 27 books, including The Summer of Lost and Found, which was an installment in the famous Beach House series. You have published children's books, and many of them carry some of those environmental themes that you've been known for in many of your amazing novels. So we just love that you are speaking to a younger generation about these incredibly awesome things to talk about. I want to talk a little bit about some of your awards and accolades because you are a beloved author, and my goodness, that has been reflected in honors and awards that you've been given. You were inducted into the South Carolina Academy of Authors Hall of Fame, Southwest Florida Author of Distinction. You have been awarded the RT Lifetime Achievement Award, the International Book Award for Green Fiction, and the prestigious Southern Book Prize for Fiction. These are amazing accolades, but well deserved. We are not surprised.
Thank you. Well, it does look, one looks back at one's long career, and it's a lovely thing to look back on, honestly. And yet I think the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that people have acted for wildlife and for the natural world as a result of the books. And that's something I don't have a tangible prize for, but I know it's happening, and it's the most important.
Yeah, well, your books inspire. And part of it is because you are weaving together these beautiful, beloved characters with fascinating plots, but also with research. And you back it up with the research that you do on wildlife and the natural world. So I love that you deftly bring that together. Not many people are able to do that without it sounding like, a nonfiction book.
Exactly. Exactly. That was the challenge when I started out some 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, you've accomplished that. And of course, a lot of people know you because The Beach House was made into a Hall of Fame Hallmark movie. And
yes,
that is
with
such
good old
a
Andy
great
McDowell.
accomplishment. That's
she
exactly
is so
right.
great. We're working on a couple other projects that hopefully we can announce soon. But she's a great actress, but also loves the environment and is a strong supporter, and so she wants to work together again.
I love it. And again, that goes back to inspiration. And outside of writing, you sit on the board for the Carolina Aquarium. You have a part in the Leatherback Trust, the Pat Conroy Literary Center Honorary Board. And it sounds like you live in both South Carolina and North Carolina. So these areas are incredibly close to your heart. And of course, the focus of much of your writing. So
always. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we are just thrilled that you are here.
I'm thrilled to be here. I know that you both care a great deal about books and literature, but also the environment. So we speak the same language.
We do.
Simpatico.
That's right.
You live how you write, and that comes across, and it's appreciated. It's appreciated. So I would love to give our listeners some background into the book. I know it's been out, but we're, for people who haven't read it yet, we're going to give some background. I won't have any spoilers, and if there's anything that you want to add at the end, please do.
Okay.
The prologue to this book is gripping. The scene is set at an estate property in South Carolina, and it's called Mayfield. After the environmental ruin of the Civil War, wildlife had begun to return. The wildlife and the ducks, everybody was thriving until came the northern industrialists. They came to shoot for sport. And although they weren't named characters in your story, we know the names. DuPont, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Pulitzer, Donnelly, Ford, big, big industrial names. And these robber barons bought up thousands of acres for pennies on the dollar, transforming the South's plantation past into playgrounds for the elite. This explosion had an impact on a young girl named Eliza in your story. She seeks refuge in the hollow of a massive oak tree and connects with another young person who loves the natural world. Eliza refuses to be confined by societal norms. She explores golden fields and sparkling ponds of Mayfield, and she just loves observing the wildlife and riding horses. The story picks up here, and we're transported to 1988 when Eliza is the matriarch of the Rivers Delancey family businesses. Eliza is moving to protect the Mayfield plantation under a legal construct called a conservancy. She has fought for her entire lifetime to save her beloved Mayfield, but now her adult son is moving to take control. To him, land is an asset. She must make decisions that will assure the future of the land and her family, or watch them both be split apart. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to that synopsis?
Oh, I'm listening in fascination. You did such a great job. I think, yes, I'd love to just add on that a lot of the, when I came to write the story, for example, Arthur, the character who thinks land is her son, who thinks land is an asset. The difficulty was how to talk about this big concept called conservation with that, and this big, the crown jewel of South Carolina, the Ace Basin, which is our finest example of conservation, without it sounding like a textbook.
Right.
And in the research that I did, I talked to a lot of the people who were there in the room. As they say, I want to be in the room where it happened. They're all old, and I actually got to talk to so many of them.
Oh.
And what was most important to me was to bring out their family stories, which were often filled with strife. And Arthur represents that whole group of people in families, or even in the community, who felt that, and who didn't understand what a conservation easement was. Truly, this was in the 80s. And they thought we, meaning conservationists, so their family members, were stealing their inheritance. And I think that's what, when you're creating a novel, you have to say, how can I tell this story in human terms, in family stories, in a saga? So Arthur represents that massive number of people who did not believe or desire conservation.
And there seems to be, like how you said, an educational rift too, where people weren't even aware that that was an option, that could be something that could happen.
There are few, like DuPont, for example, who was fully aware, was intelligent and privileged and in the inside circles, but his primary motive was tax break.
Absolutely.
So everybody has a reason for it. So it's not always so altruistic. But I think the one statement by Charles Lane, who was a real person who I emulated a little bit in the Rhodes family in the novel, Rhodes Lane. I just tried to tie that hint in a little bit. But Charles Lane was at a meeting, and he's one of the plantation owners. And he was in the meeting of a small group of people who owned thousands and thousands of acres in the Ace Basin. At the time, it was not called the Ace Basin. Ace, for those of you who don't know, it's the Nishopu-Cumbie-Edisto rivers that merge in this area, and the acronym is ACE. But there was a contention among the landowners about whether this was a good idea. And Charles Lane got up to speak, and he said, I was out fishing with my son and my grandson. And I looked around at this beautiful land and how I was sharing this moment. And I knew that I had to do something to protect this and preserve this for my son and my grandson. And that sentiment is what swung over most of the people. So their altruism was there for the general good, as Rousseau said, but it still was for my family. And that's okay. That's good. I think a lot of people who put land into conservation have some element of selfishness, but it's still a general good concept.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Ace Basin, and I want to take our focus there for a second. This
Okay.
this area, a vast biodiverse area of land, um, is home to, I think, generations of conflict and love and family. You mentioned family and, people's personal stakes in this area. And increasingly, this idea of stewardship, of care, of conservation. Can you talk a little bit more about people's increasing understanding of the importance of how all of these ecosystems are interrelated, and also how we kind of came to be taking care of that? So, are we in charge of the natural world? Are we responsible for it? How did we come up with this idea of conservation and stewardship? And what is our relationship with nature, essentially?
I see you asking two questions really
I'm
in that.
asking a lot of questions. That was a lot. Take
But
it away.
well, when I approach a novel and I have to tell, again, it's storytelling. So how do I tell this huge story? It takes place over almost a century of time. And it's actually the greatest era of change, a century of change in South Carolina, or the South. Probably the nation's history is the 20th century and the 21st. So I looked at not just that so much was happening to the land, but so much was happening to the people, to the families, and I looked at how do you tell this change without it becoming boring, for another word. So that's why I chose one woman, Eliza, and she was born in 1900, and through her, I was able to show my readers not just that land was put into conservation, and why this woman, when we meet her at 88 years of age, why she would be willing to put all her land in conservation, and why she would be willing to fight for it, and why she wanted people to understand what conservation meant. The word that keeps popping up is why. Why? And you can't explain that in a paragraph. So by showing this young girl's life, and when she's a child, that's when the roots of the love of the land came through. So while the reader is living with her as she's out in the fields and riding her great horse and at the pond, and you live life there with her, I want the reader to enjoy and appreciate Mayfield or the land as much as the character. And that's that emotion that I talk about that has more power in storytelling than any statistics ever could. So when in book one, Where the Rivers Merge, and it's 2 books, we grow up with Eliza and we fall in love with the land. But it's a dual timeline. It's the 88-year-old Eliza who has lived this whole era that when we open the novel is fighting for the protection of this land. So I tell the reader right away through the opening chapters that her motivation, Eliza, the old matriarch, her motivation is to save Mayfield, to save this land that she loves from the grasps of not just her son, but in posterity forever. So in that dual timeline, I'm able to have the people appreciate why the love of land is there, but also Eliza's more mature understanding of what conservation is in modern times. I don't think the reader's truly going to get the full picture of how to answer your question. until book 2.
Mhm.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's why they're
And
excited for it.
in book 2, you're going to be in the room where it happens. You're going to be with Eliza when she makes that phone call. What makes it so exciting, one of the reasons I wanted to tell this story, how do you talk about conservation? I zeroed in on the Ace Basin because not only is it gorgeous, it has 360,000 plus acres. It's one of the great estuarine parks in the Southeast. But the story for the humans is so great. It's because I don't know anywhere else in the country where people grew up for generations. The old plantation families, now they're great estates, where they could call each other and say, Charles, there's a plant coming in that's going to ruin our water. Let's get together and talk about it. And they all get together and talk about it. I put you in that room where they talk about it and they fight about it. And then the conservation easements start. I'm going to let the reader figure that part out at the end of these 2 books. They can go to Google, they can get books and learn all the statistics, but this is how it happened. And more importantly, why? The human stories about why would people do this? And all people out there today, why you can do this for yourself with your property. I'm hoping to inspire, to help people understand that this is how it's going to mean the difference for our planet.
Absolutely.
It's the bigger picture. It's not just a species. It's the vast ecosystems that will preserve our planet as we move forward. And we need to do this now.
Absolutely. Well, especially because we're starting to see, even in this story, that interdependence of the health of
Yes.
the land with the health of relationships and people, the air we
Yes.
breathe. So it's a
Yes.
beautiful picture. And I will say this, I don't know exactly where you're going with book 2, but there's some inklings. We see how Eliza is starting to help the reader visualize it's not and or, it is both and. We can start thinking about multiple ways that we could both benefit. And, Arthur here is it's one or the other. It's we profit or, we lose.
Yes.
So I love that dichotomy that you're setting up between them with just that big picture systems thinking.
And it does relate to every, one of the things I do is that's the theme.
Yeah.
And that theme is brought across every issue of the plot, every issue of characterization, because that's the way I think I've always done it with each of the books that I've written. I've not, for example, the sea turtles with the beach house. I didn't teach people about sea turtles. I use the chapter headings, which is a tool that I really love, and I did it in this book too. Whenever I feel I need it, I do that, because that delivers factual information without what I call dumping in the novel, because that's what slows. I call that lazy writing. You don't ever want to slow a reader down from the story because you feel I have to give you information. So I just give those facts, but more importantly, it's getting it what you learn. What are the facts, and how can you make that thematic? How can you put that into characterization? For example, the territorialism. That's another main theme of the novel. Animals, not all animals, but there's a lot of birds in this book because birds are territorial. And they will fight for their feeding nesting area. And other animals like dolphins in the sea, they have area where they it's like a managed habitat between them, that they try to ignore each other when they share space, But humans, territorialism is a concept that can be used for agriculture. Like, this is our agricultural area. This is mine. I grow here. For nationhood, for religion, and certainly for politics. Racism is a kind of territorialism. And I guess I'm asking the question how territorial are humans? And
Do we have a right to that?
Do we have a right to that? And if not, are we different than the animals that we think we are? Are we so different? And I think that's the challenge I'm asking everyone by the end of book 2, for them to and through Eliza, her goal is to save Mayfield no matter what. She's very territorial.
Yeah.
But we're going to see her soften as she tells her family stories and relive her childhood again. And by the reliving, you remember. And so we're going to see her realize, what is she really saving? And who is she saving it for? And I think that takes her out of this territorialism to a more humanitarian vision or altruistic vision, which is what we need for survival on this planet. We must lose our territorialism or lose this. Our species will suffer as a result if we don't. So it's kind of a grand scheme, but if you just tell it in a human story, we're going to learn a lot just through Eliza.
Yeah.
And I challenge the readers to look at Eliza in themselves and ask themselves, what is my legacy? What am I saving? What am I leaving behind in my own life? And it doesn't have to be 4,000 acres. Yeah. In fact, it usually isn't about something tangible. What are you leaving behind? And I think that's, given the big questions facing us on the planet today, that altruistic vision, that lack of self-ownership is going to be really critical. And I always say, if you care, you take care. And hopefully my readers will travel with Eliza to this understanding.
Yeah, I love that.
We alluded, sorry, we alluded to something off air earlier about the change in the direction of environmentalism and how the focus was once narrow and has broadened, and how Eliza is growing with that narrative. And you could not have picked, it was a genius move. You could not have picked
Thank
a
you.
more all-encompassing industrial revolution for this person to grow up in and see and view. And her, her ideologies are changing, and why does she care so much about this? But she's one person. And when you ask your readers to reflect and kind of see themselves in her and have that resonate, you really get an understanding of how much impact one person can have, So it's
Yes.
inspirational in
Yes.
that way, because you're like, that's one woman, but she went through all of these things. She went through this time period. She has that like inner fire for it. And I got that out of that, and I hope that other readers do too. So
Yeah, we're all agents of reconciliation on some level, and here we see the seeds for that, both personally, ethically, morally, and with respect to the natural world. Your book's very ambitious, but you don't realize it. You're reading, and then you're like,
sweet.
"Oh my goodness,
It was
I
sweet.
it's so good." I
Thank
want to
you.
ask you. You had
Took
said
a long
something.
time.
I believe it. You had said something a minute ago that I thought was very important, and that is this idea of storytelling. We have a dual timeline. So part of when we are meeting and interacting with Eliza, she is an 88-year-old woman with a lot of wisdom, a lot of hard-learned lessons, but she is also relating stories to her granddaughter, to another family member. Some of it aided by these beautiful murals that are gracing the walls at Mayfield. I wanted to ask you about that. How and why is it so important for us to recount our family stories to the younger women or the younger generation?
Well, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And especially now that I am able to speak through Eliza, because I'm older now. I could not have written this book 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. I'm not as old as Eliza yet, but I'm still of that certain age where I can look back and see where decisions that I've made are actually not random, but you connect the dots. And you do see the big picture, and you wonder if there's a pattern somewhere, where those decisions stem from. But back to legacy and leaving, the question was about leaving behind through the storytelling, and why is storytelling so important. My husband passed away, and when I got things from the family members that I had sent, pictures and mementos, but also came letters. And I was a big letter writer back in the day. And reading the letters, you see, I was like a diary of pages and pages I would write to my mother or to my mother-in-law about what was going on in our lives. And it was a day-to-day act. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're losing that. And my sisters and I were on ancestry.com, and all you get is a name and a date, but you don't get the story. And we realized when we die, we're taking the stories with us. And how many times do you sit down with your family and talk about crazy Uncle Louie and who came through Ellis Island and this, the funny things Grandpa used to fish and, caught fiddler crabs, and this is how you tell the stories. And I love those personalities that come through in storytelling about our own families, which we don't do anymore as much. And I challenge readers to get out there and tell stories with your family at Christmas and Thanksgiving and when you gather. The other thing is the murals. I thought, well, how do you instill, where are these stories going to pop up in her mind? And when I was doing the research, I was actually able to stay at a couple of the plantation homes in the Ace Basin, thanks to the invitations of strangers. And the house that I loved the most was Bonnie Hall in Yemassee. And you can go online and Google it. It's there. And it is really the inspiration for Mayfield. And while I was there and I stayed inside the house, the dining room had a mural, just one big mural. And I thought, it wasn't that beautiful. But then I don't know if it was a dream. I dream my stories a lot, or I just imagined it. But the scenes, I could see scenes, and that they would prick her memory. And then I realized who painted those scenes. And that'll be in book 2. And, but she's sitting in this dining room with all these scenes of various stories of family members. And they prick her memory and make it come alive for her to tell that story. And I think it is a good tool. As a writer, you're looking for visuals and tools to get your readers sucked into the visual story. And I loved the mural idea. I did. And between the two, again, Eliza's not only informing her granddaughter and niece of their history and the family stories, but she's reliving it for herself. And this icy, harsh woman at the beginning of the book, who's 88 and had to make hard decisions, I want the reader to see in book 1 and especially in book 2, the ice melt.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to be as an older person.
Yeah. Well, much like the comfort that those letters brought you after the loss of your husband,
yes,
we see where your characters drew comfort from telling their stories, even as young people when they were separated from one another. And I thought that was beautiful because, when we have younger generations, you don't want to instruct them and tell them the life lessons. You want them to experience them through that storytelling and have that buy-in and see where they are directly impacted, but they don't even realize it.
But I did love
beautiful.
when they called her on a couple of things.
Yeah.
Especially Nora, when she named a flaw of Eliza's and the breakup of her friendship.
Yeah.
And it was the question of racism came up, and I had to have sensitivity readers, of course. And I happily passed, and I just wrote as I saw it. But whenever anything was questioned, I was jumping in with gratitude to fix and repair anything that I may not. I don't consider myself racist in the least, but I think being raised as a white person, you're not always sensitive to everything. Who was it that talks? Doesn't Harry talk about that a lot in his biography about didn't realize that he could be somewhat racist himself. And I think it's important for us to look at the way we view history and the way, especially during the Jim Crow era, which was such a horrible period of our history. But Eliza is a character who was fiercely independent. She saw life the way she wanted it to be.
Yeah.
She was a tomboy. scout. She didn't want to be a lady until she grew up somewhat. And then she didn't see her best friend as any different, even though she was Black. And it was the Covey, her friend, who knew better.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
the breakup of the friendship, and I don't want to tell the readers, it was not about racism. It was about friendship.
Yes.
And I wanted to be sure that was the point. But still, I loved it when Nora, the young girl, named it and called her great aunt on it, because I think it was important that there's a dialogue, that the girls are not just sitting there as a mute audience, but a listening audience.
Yes. And if you don't mind, I know Julia has one last question for you, but I want to just
Right
interject something here. There's a
we
point.
wanted to talk about this.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's a point where Savannah also,
Yeah.
she calls her grandmother to task and basically says, you know, hey, these are wonderful days. I wish I could have lived back
Oh,
then.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Eliza, in a moment of, I think, extreme self-reflection, says, that's what makes nostalgia a dangerous trap. The happy memories shine brightest. They lure you into thinking the past was better than the present. And then Nora says, especially for people of color. Now, that must have hit Eliza hard, because it seems to me like she was starting to think in terms of, how do I have empathy while also recognizing that I have these internal biases that I've never, confronted directly.
And privileges.
Exactly. And privileges, which
Yes.
was so obvious to the reader
Yeah.
and to Covey when they were in Charleston together to seek higher education. Back in the day, Black and white children played together in rural communities all the time. It was just the way it was. But once puberty hit, the lines were drawn. And you could still get away with more friendships, but it was still in Charleston very strict.
Yeah.
And that's when Eliza was foolish. She was. And I think Eliza was also young. And I really want people to understand that I'm trying to be true. She loved her friend. She wanted to be with her friend. She loved her brother. She felt sympathy for her mother. There's all these feelings that a young girl has at 18 that, looking back on it, you realize your own stupidity, your naivete. And also the whole relationships change. I defy any mother or any daughter to not agree that your relationship with your father and your mother changes over time.
Yeah.
And if you look at Eliza's relationship with her mother when she was young, and when she got older and became a woman herself, it changed. And her father, who was on a pinnacle, look what happened there by the time she got married. And I think it's really important to realize that as we change, we make mistakes, but it's through mistakes that you learn and make tough decisions. And Eliza suffers, but she also has great joy. And believe it or not, the real tough things are going to happen in book 2.
Oh my goodness. I cannot wait. I can't wait.
I see why people were writing you letters. You're going to get letters from us.
Well, like I said, I love that people want book 2 because it means they are engaged. And I promise I'm doing everything I can to get it to you as fast as I can, and the publisher too. I have to finish the book. It's all here, though. It's all here.
Appreciate and love stories that touch on that, like, generational impact of just relationships changing and things, because Kristen is actually my mother. So we're a mother-daughter duo, and like I know. And we love stories like that because they cause us to reflect on our relationship. So we have these conversations with authors, and they open new doors, and then we talk about it after off air.
I
And
love it. I love it.
That
Well,
really,
I think I really did love the story between the mother and daughter on this one, because, you thought they'd never be friends in life. And then, they both acquiesced enough as women. And so book 2, I'm having a lot of fun. Wait till you see what happens in book 2.
Oh, well, we're seated. We're ready.
Okay, I will say one thing. Here's a hint. The prologue, which you mentioned, thank you. I loved that prologue. The prologue in book 2 is someone finds a dead body.
Oh.
It's a bold start.
I've always
Oh,
wanted to do that.
interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, I know, Julie, I had one last question. Do you have one more second? I know we're keeping you from writing book
Oh
two.
no,
Okay.
I'm eager. I'm eager to talk.
So it just a total switch of gears, but I did want to ask about Capitano, the Carolina
Oh,
Marsh tacky stallion in the story. And as we've been discussing bigger themes, race and friendship and people's social obligations, there seem to be a lot of people that didn't, for whatever the reason was, couldn't do or be who they are or what they were destined to do. And in the story, you had this horse who was meant to run fast, and he was headstrong, and he fought what he was made to do, which was run. And that analogy, I wanted to ask if that was intentional because you
mm,
have kind of something that is their nature is to do something, and then you have people who their nature is to do something, but they're not allowed, whether that's social or legal or moral or whatever restraint that is.
exactly.
And could you talk about that kind of, I guess, just a juxtaposition, my gosh, words, that juxtaposition of those two kind of themes going on in your story?
Well, you guys are the best. You picked up everything in the story.
Awesome.
Amazing. You're the only one that caught this one. Yes, for sure. The restrictions against the restraints is actually a better word, like a rein. And there's a rein on Eliza, and it's called primogeniture. Being a female, they had no voice.
Yeah.
And this, like an animal had no voice. So he was owned. And in a sense, females were owned. They didn't have the vote until the 20s. So during this entire time of the book, she had no vote. And she was capable and yet would never be considered a possibility to run or manage Mayfield because of her gender. And this actually, even though primogeniture as a law was abolished at this time, it was very much in practice. And I think even today, boys are sometimes, you're going to get married. When I was raised, and I was an academic, I loved school. My daddy would always say, you're going to get married someday. Your boys, the sons are the ones who have to carry on, and I have to really make sure. And I would go crazy, because I wanted to do it all. So I sympathized with Eliza. And actually, there are characters in real life. Belle Baruch from Hobcob Barony in Georgetown. And of course, Eliza Pinckney, who is, I made my character a descendant of Eliza Pinckney because of her abilities to manage a plantation. And so in that same way, Capitano, there is a real Capitano. And I'm going to have a picture taken for the back of the book with me and Capitano. I think I should have done it for
Oh,
this
you
one.
should.
And he's a gorgeous horse. And I always wanted to write about the marsh tackies, this rare breed that's was going extinct, and now there's an effort to keep them going in South Carolina. It's a South Carolina state horse, but he's being held back, and even the father who believes in this breed, his timing was off. He starts breeding this wonderful horse in earnest at the time of the automobile advance. Or as his wife says, you bet on the wrong horse again.
Yes. Such a good line. and those reins we see where many of your characters are they have a bit in their mouth.
Well,
And I can't wait to
yes.
see. Oh, yes. And I
And
suspect another character. I'm not going to say anything, but I think in book 2, you're going to be exploring this more. We see these
what character? What character?
I don't,
Does it begin with a T?
Lizane. And I feel like
Lizane.
with Lizane, there's something restrained
Oh, yes.
socially, morally, and otherwise, relationally. And so I cannot wait for this book too. Now I know why people are writing you. But Mary Alice, your book is phenomenal. We are
Thank
so grateful
you.
that you came on the show to talk about it. We hope you come back, for book
Oh,
2.
we have to. We have to talk about how I handled the end.
Yes, yes, because I've got thoughts.
I'm gonna be waiting for your perspicacious questions.
Oh my
You
God.
better believe it.
So
Well,
sweet.
we love
Well,
it.
Before we move on and tell our listeners how to get, in contact, buy a book, any of that stuff, and I know we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but we would love to know what you have coming down the line. We know that there's a second book. We're eagerly awaiting it.
Mm.
And is there anything else that you wanted to share maybe with our listeners or with us about
Sure.
what you have coming like forward?
I know nothing under contract, and that's good. I'm going to go a little rogue, but I think this is my magnus opus for the South. This really is, and I know I promised my readers one more beach house because I always write full circle, and I'm going to tell you readers here too. The opening of the book is the tree hollow. So remember, I'm telling you now that the book two comes. It's all one story. It's not a sequel. One
Right.
story, and so you will be back at the tree hollow at the end of the book.
Awesome.
So remember that. So the beach house in the same way, full circle. There's 7 books, and for those who haven't read it, they age chronologically.
Yeah.
And Kara came to the book at 40. And she's aged over the last 20 years, plus years. So now she's the same age that Lovey was.
Okay.
So I'm going to finish the series. And I look forward to writing that. I know my
we can't
readers
wait.
want to see that
Yes,
conclusion.
Awesome.
100%. Well, wonderful. Well, again, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We love
Thank
this book.
you.
We're encouraging people to go to your website. It's Mary Alice Monroe, and that's
I'll bring the cover.
ROE.com. Yes, and you have
The beautiful cover.
Oh, it's lovely.
Look at that, the deckled edge, but you can't really see it online.
You
but
should
it's
show
quite
the
pretty.
painting that you're doing.
Oh, and this, yes, I was saying this my daughter drew a live oak that is so important to the book. And here it is.
Gorgeous.
And if you look
Oh,
really
thank-
closely in your book, there's a hollow in it. But that is how I imagined the great live oak with a hollow that Eliza got into as a child.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You bring things to life, you inspire, and we're grateful that you are writing, let alone coming on the show to discuss it. So thank you so much.
Well, I look forward to our next conversation.
Me
We
too.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care
Mary.
now, Mary Alice.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Oh my gosh. I almost can't believe how intertwined her stories are with things that we have talked so much about and that we have going on in our own lives, starting in South Carolina with the angel oak and the environment. And just, she mentioned Ellis Island. Meanwhile, you've been there to do that research in the background of
Yeah.
your history. And that to me, that was an awesome parallel.
Oh, yeah. Her books are so always fully developed with characters with these rich lives, and you connect with them, whether you're from the South or the North, it doesn't matter, right? These are human emotions and human experiences that many people have shared. And I just absolutely love her writing. I love her books. And I hope our listeners pick this one up, especially. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. It'll stay with you. I want to add to, we've got some other authors that are coming on board for summer and into fall. We are very excited. We've got Don Winslow with The Final Score, Lou Burney, Crooks, A Family Portrait, Ashley Ream, The Peculiar Gift of July, Mariah Blake with They Poisoned the World, Life and Death in the Age of Forever Chemicals. We have Pulitzer Prize winner Caroline Fraser with Murderland, Crime and Bloodlust in the Time of Serial Killers. We've got Susan Wiggs with Wayward Girls, Joanne Harris with the prequel to Chocolat called Vienne. We've got Christina Baker Klein and Ann Burke coming back with Please Don't Lie. Isabella Maldonado and Jeffrey Deaver are also coming back with The Grave Artist. Laura Griffin with Innocence Road. Alma Katzu with Fiend. And we're growing every week. Thank you, listeners. We ask that you just share our links in our socials. We're so appreciative. You can find us on bookstormpodcast.com. We're on Instagram, on X. We're on YouTube where you can see these beautiful videos. But we know why you're coming back after every week after week. It's because we're bringing you the very best authors. They're here live. And we